Welcome to Aviation Careers Podcast. My name is Carl Valeri, and today we're going to talk about the 10 reasons why you should not become an airline pilot. If you remember in the last episode, I talked about the 10 reasons you should become an airline pilot, but I also want to do this to talk about those things that would cause you not to become an airline pilot. And these are the kind of things we go over like in our coaching sessions and, when we do our group or our individual coaching. By the way, you can find out more about that at aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching. But let's get right into it. What are the 10 reasons why you should not become an airline pilot? And these are not really in any particular order other than the fact this is, it might be in the order of how I hear them. But I decided not to totally rank them in a specific order, but there's 10 of them. And number one is you're away from home for many, many nights. And depending on the job you have, and this again is for airline pilots we're talking, some people who become more senior will be able to actually be home more often if they do one thing, and that's live in base. And then another thing, and that's become senior in the equipment that they're flying. When we talk about equipment, by the way, that means the actual airplane that you're flying. That's called the equipment. So if you're flying a 737, that's the equipment you're flying. So again, you're away from home for many nights, and that may not be good because some people don't want to be on the road. And I know there's people out there that are able to massage their schedule so that they're not away from home very often, but this is one of the big downsides. You can change that by moving close to base, but I wouldn't do that right away. We talk a lot about that in our coaching sessions as to where should you live when you first get hired at an airline. So the second reason that you really shouldn't become an airline pilot is you're going to miss holidays, birthdays, family events, different sporting events maybe. So this was a big thing for a lot of people, is that they felt like they were going to miss out on many things. And it does happen. When you start being able to have the ability to massage your schedule, you get a little more senior, you'll have more days off. Now I understand, most airline jobs, you have 15 days off in a month. Or you work like maybe 16 to 18 possibly. But remember this, is that a lot of times if you're not living near your base, you're going to have to commute home, which means that if you live in LA and you work in New York, it's going to be a bit of a commute there. So you may miss some of those holidays, those birthdays, etc. And also, our system is always based on bidding and seniority bidding, so you may not be able to bid those birthdays off and stuff like that. Good example is next month is my birthday, and it's my brother's birthday, and I'm trying to bid those days off. I'm pretty junior in the base I'm in. I don't know if I'm going to get it off or not, so it's going to be kind of interesting. I also, just to relate one of my other stories, is that we have this family event every year, and it's during Labor Day weekend, or Memorial Day, can't remember. And that actually, I miss a lot of times because I can't get that weekend off, because holiday weekends are very hard to get off, just like I said. And so for 7 years, I wasn't able to go. Finally, I went, and they're like, well, where you been all these years? And so that may happen too. You have to prioritize what days you want off. So the third reason that you shouldn't become an airline pilot is that when you're thousands of miles away, something could go wrong at home and you may not be able to help. And if that's something that you want to do, is be home all the time to be able to help with anything that breaks, etc., you're not going to be there. So that is one of the reasons many people talk about, the reason they don't want to become an airline pilot. And again, this is something that you have to work out in your life. Or is your family member, significant other, going to be able to take care of those problems that are there? That may or may not be the case, but it's something you have to work out. And it's something that I think is really important to talk about. And show this list, by the way, to all your friends and relatives that you're talking to about the possibility of getting into aviation as a career, because I think it's really important that we have those conversations. Another thing that I think is the fourth reason why you should not become an airline pilot is the fact that if you're the type of person that likes to change jobs often, this is not good in this industry, but in other industries, it works well. When I was in another industry, in most corporate jobs, you want to change jobs every so often so you can accelerate your growth, and actually your growth in both your income and also your position. You may be hired into a higher position. Doesn't work in the airline industry. In the airline industry, everything is based on seniority, on your date of hire. So if you like to change jobs often, you're going to stay junior for most of your career. How does this happen? For instance, if you are a captain with American Airlines and you've been there for 15 years and you decide that you want to go to United Airlines, well, if you move to United Airlines, you start over again at the most junior slot and start at the bottom. So if you like to change jobs, you're going to change jobs, but you're going to go out to the bottom of the list. It's a lot different than other jobs out there. It's a very important point is that if you like to change jobs often, this is not the career for you. So understand everything. Your seniority is everything. And if you get hired, your seniority is based on your hire date for flying positions. So this doesn't apply to corporate jobs. This doesn't apply to certain private and business aviation jobs. So for instance, if you're somebody who has a lot of experience in a certain airplane, you may be able to move over to a different airplane at a different corporation and make a lot more money. That might be true. You're flying a Citation, then you move into, say, a Falcon or a Global Express, you'll get paid more. But in the airline industry, if you move, you're going to actually get paid less because you're starting over. Now, this is something that I really think is important. So if you're somebody who likes to change jobs often, you shouldn't become an airline pilot. The other big thing too, and I like to talk about this in our coaching sessions, is that if you don't like an unstable industry, which is prone to all these swings in the economy, being an airline pilot may not be for you. If you do want to become an airline pilot and you understand those things, that we need to talk about planning. You have to plan as if you're like a business owner. You have to plan for not just a rainy day, but a rainy year or a rainy couple of years. A good example is after, say, a recession, a 9/11, going into a war, COVID, it could be years before you actually get back to making the same money or any money at all. So you have to be a lot more conservative with your money. So you have to make sure that you keep a lot of more money on the side to survive. And that's something a lot of people may not want to do. They may want to be able to be in an industry where they're always going to find jobs all the time. I'm recording this right now in January 18th of 2025. And right now, the hiring is a little bit tight. And so it's not like it was 2 years ago. We just, you could fog a mirror and get a job. Well, we're going through this period now where if you lose your job, finding a job is going to be very difficult. There's a lot of folks out there that are actually being furloughed right now. By the way, I have a coupon for those people that are furloughed. Send me an email if you're furloughed, feedback@aviationcareerspodcast.com. I have a coupon so you can get 50% off our services. And really, my heart goes out to you. I've been furloughed before, and I've worked with furloughed pilots for a long, long time. So if you are, very, woozy about that or don't really want to get into an industry where there's up and downs in the industry and you have to plan for that, this may not be the industry for you. But through proper planning, you can make this your job. But if you don't like an industry where there's lots of ups and downs, then this isn't for you. And I understand there's other industries that are like that. The difference with this industry and what I'm trying to really get at is that when there's a downturn in the industry, if you are, say, a 10-year captain at a major airline, you happen to get either furloughed or whatever, it's going to be hard to get that income back because you got to start all over again at another airline. You start at the bottom as a first officer. So that's something you got to be ready for. So that's one of the things. If you don't like that, shouldn't become an airline pilot. The other thing, one reason, I should say, number 6, as far as why you shouldn't become an airline pilot, is if you don't like continuous training and testing of your skills and knowledge, this is not the job for you. If you don't like always being tested on both your skills as a pilot and your knowledge as a pilot and the rules and the regulations, this isn't a job for you. On average, we're being tested or taking a quiz or a test at least once a month. And a lot of places now, airlines are doing a lot of their recurrent training online for the knowledge portion. And then there's every year at least, sometimes more than once a year, you come in for training and you're in the simulators, and it could be days worth of training. And these are all training but also checking events, and you have to do that. So, you could possibly lose your job once a year because if you don't pass training, there's that possibility that you may not come back to work. Most airlines will work with you. They'll actually have you go through a new kind of a syllabus so that it helps you get through the training again. But if you are having issues in training and you don't like training, this is not the job for you. If you do not like constantly being tested on your skills and your knowledge, this isn't the job for you. So that's something that you just have to deal with as an airline pilot. The other thing that I think is kind of strange, number 7, as far as the reasons you don't want to become an airline pilot or should not become an airline pilot, is you don't like working in an enclosed environment. Now, I get it. We have these big windows that we have around the cockpit, and they're wonderful. But if you don't like working in that small environment with someone right next to you and a whole bunch of people, this may not be it for you. If you like the freedom of being outside, or you may want to go into something else, obviously Baron and towing and things like that. But there's many other jobs out there where you do have that more, freedom and openness and that type of thing. You're not going to get that as much at the airlines because you're in this enclosed environment. I get it. You have these big windows, but you're still working in this enclosed environment. So if you don't like working in an enclosed environment, this isn't the job for you. So number 8, one of the reasons that you should not become an airline pilot is if you don't or can't work 16 to 18 hours a day. So that, and it can be more. But as far as regulations are concerned, 16 hours is usually the limit. It can be up to 18. It can be more, especially if you're in what's called augmented operations, flying internationally. You really probably shouldn't do this as a job because you're going to have very long days, and these long days could add up to many, many days of long days. In other words, you work a long day, you get a minimum amount of rest, it's 10 hours, boom, you're back flying again. So that could happen. So just remember, if you can't work 16-hour days, this is not the job for you. And if you don't like working 16 hours a day, when you came in for a 2-hour day, this might not be the job for you, because that's something else. Say you're coming to this job and you're flying as an airline pilot. It's only a 2-3 hour day. You're just taking a short hop somewhere. They could actually turn that schedule around and make you fly for many more hours and fly for up to 16 hours. So just remember that. That could happen. So if you don't like that, airline flying is not for you. Number 9 is this. You have to put off your ability to make a higher income. If you don't like delayed gratification, then becoming an airline pilot is not for you. You start at the bottom, like I said, you work your way up. That's both for bidding your schedules, but also for pay. The pay scales are all based on your years of service. So the scales you can look them on the internet, by the way. The scale says if you're a United Airlines first officer at 5 years, you're making a certain amount of money. If you're a United Airlines captain at 5 years, you make a certain amount of money, period, right? So if you're wanting to make money right away and make that 12-year pay that you see on the list, it's going to come at 12 years. It's not going to happen right away. There are ways to massage your schedule to make more money, and believe me, I see it, and I've been able to do it myself. But you really need to realize that in this industry, in general, you got to pay your dues, as they say. There's a lot of training involved. There's a lot of experience you need to get to be able to become an airline pilot. So if you don't mind delayed gratification and income coming later in life, this is the career for you. If you don't like that delayed gratification and the fact that you're going to actually make money later on in your career, being an airline pilot is not for you. So number 10, as far as reasons you should not become an airline pilot, is you don't work well in stressful environments. And a lot of people describe our industry of hours of boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror. Well, that's true. There are times when it does get a little bit scary because there's something that happens, especially in emergencies and things like that. But remember this, that there are a lot of stresses within working as an airline pilot. And I can go over those in a whole video, but just a good example is we talked about the training. You have a lot of training that you have to go through. You also have to keep your medical up. And every year or maybe every 6 months, depending on your age, you could lose your medical, you could lose your job. Every year you go to training, you could lose your job. You have an incident at work, and you could possibly, have an accident incident that cause you to either get more training or actually possibly maybe lose your job. There's a lot of these stresses there. The other stresses are the actual job itself. You have passengers that can be a challenge sometime. Coworkers that can be a challenge sometime. The operation can be a challenge. You have weather that's a challenge. You also have, emergencies, mechanical issues that can become an emergency. Those are the kind of things. These are real stresses. And if you can't handle that stressful environment, this may not be for you. Because remember, and this is kind of interesting, when you're trying to get off the gate and say you're the captain of that flight, you have so many people coming to you from all different directions about bags and loading. And, hey, we've got an MEL. We've got to fix something that's broken on the airplane. And that's what I mean by the MEL. So there's all these things that are happening. They're all happening at once. And you have to learn how to work within that environment, take a step back and do things in a proper order, deal with those things that are the most important, and then go from there. But that can be very stressful for people. You can turn that around and just look in your head and say to yourself, I know this is where I'm at. I can't, I can only do what I can do. And I'm going to just deal with each problem at a time. But if you let that get to you, that's going to cause a lot of consternation in your life. So if you don't work well in a stressful environment, becoming an airline pilot may not be for you. But I tell you what, if you're interested in this as a career, I think it's a great career, but I really like to be upfront as to things that aren't good. I know there's a lot of negativity on the internet. You can find all sorts of bad things that are happening in the world of aviation. I still love flying. I could do this. I could do any kind of airline flying, whatever it may be. I do like the airline flying for many reasons I talked about in the last video. Go back and check that out, our last one about the 10 reasons why you should become an airline pilot. But it's a wonderful environment. Again, my favorite things is that I love to go travel, and I get paid to do it and visit places and people. But if you can't handle all these things, and trust me, there's days where I'm like, oh boy, I don't want to go into work because the weather's bad or whatever. It's just, you got to work through that. But for the most part, that's only maybe 5% of the time, maybe less than that, where you're flying with someone you don't like. As an airline pilot, you don't care because you're going to move on. But these are the 10 reasons why you should not become an airline pilot. And if you're on the fence trying to figure out if you want to become an airline pilot, we have something for you, and that's our coaching services. We have two types. We have the one-on-one where you can sign up for coaching with me. We also have a group coaching mentorship program, which is really good. And you can actually get a month of that for free when you sign up. And that's called Coach It Forward coupon. And that's our coaching mentorship program. It's a group mentorship. And it's almost like a mastermind where we bounce questions off each other. It also enables you to get online into this community where you can ask questions and answer questions. The other thing you can do is you can leave and come back in at any time. So maybe you need that group coaching, and you only need it for a couple of months. You can just leave and then come back. And you get to look at all the past coaching sessions. We record them all. So that might be helpful for you. But no matter what, make sure you get a mentor. It could be through our program. It could be a one-on-one coaching. Maybe we're trying to decide what it is you need to do or how to go about this financially, how to figure out what your budget might be for training, etc. Then I'd highly recommend checking out either our coaching, aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching, or going out there and finding a mentor. But go back and review these 10 items, the reasons that you should not become an airline pilot. And if these things don't seem that bad, maybe it is time you become an airline pilot. But no matter what it is, if you're someone who's considering this as a career, you're already in this career, maybe you're thinking of moving into another field within aviation, the most important thing you can do for me is to take one step every day towards your career goal. It could be something small. It could be listening to a podcast, watching these videos on YouTube. If you're here on YouTube, I highly recommend going out and checking some of our other videos and other videos that are out there. But make sure that every day you do something to move forward in your career and in your life, and you will get there to your career goal sooner than you think. Well, I'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying out there. It's been wonderful talking to you. And don't forget, take one step today to move forward in your career.